How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. And what we're going to talk about today is scam hunters will keep you poor. And here's the reason why they're going to keep you poor. And if you're coming out of anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world, let me know what part of the country that you're coming out of. Let me know that you can actually hear me. And let's go ahead and get right to it. One of the reasons why we're creating this particular content piece is because I think a lot of people are suffering from a lack of education in certain spaces. And they've been taught a dependency model to where I can get all my answers from this one central figure without kind of understanding that that doesn't really empower them. It just puts them in a position to where they still don't know because everything's based on being dependent upon that one central figure. And what we're seeing is that a lot of people who lack education in particular areas, they're looking for somebody to point out everybody that is going to be a bad agent in that particular space. But my question is, when is the education piece going to come in to where those people can identify those situations for themselves? So let me give an example. I can help people by teaching them how to find out that a mechanic is going to be a good fit for what they're trying to do, instead of me pointing out every bad mechanic in the city. Because at the end of the day, you still need a mechanic, right? So there are going to be some mechanics in the city that are not good operators. But even though there aren't good operators, you still need to go to mechanics to get your car fixed. So then the question is, what benefits people more? To teach them how to actually identify and develop a relationship with a good mechanic, or just to point out everybody that's going to be bad in a particular space? So it really comes from a different perspective, and also a different of goals and what we're trying to do here, as opposed to maybe what somebody's trying to do somewhere else. But the overarching theme of this particular situation or this video is going to be that scam hunters, right, will keep you poor. And the reason why they're going to keep you poor, for anybody that doesn't want to watch the whole video, is that there's no education piece coming with it. And I don't mean education piece where I'm going to just identify who is the scammers. What I mean by education piece is, here's the education you need to evaluate situations on your own so you can make best decisions that are going to work for you and your group, right? So when I'm talking about education, I mean education from the standpoint of, here's how you solve the problems in your group, not education to where you have been taught a certain set of curriculum, but it still doesn't solve the problems of your group. And what the problem we're going to talk about is that, right, scam hunters that keep you poor. That's the problem. The problem is not scammers, okay? The solution is you need to stop listening to them, because there is no education piece of what they're going. And I think so many people have been taught this model through this particular marketplace that we operate in, to where, yes, you need to go to people that know more than you to understand certain things. But in my opinion, you need to constantly seek to educate you on environments and areas that are important to you. So if these three things are going to be important to you, they're going to help you get what you want to get out of the world, you need to have a fundamental understanding of those particular areas. You don't have to be the expert, but you should be able to come into the situation with a basic understanding of what's going on. Okay? But I come from a different perspective than a lot of people. We have business models in this particular country that are built based on this person having all the knowledge around a particular topic, and everybody going to that particular person, and they have no idea what they're talking about. I was watching a guy on YouTube today. He presents himself as a real estate expert. He said that the reason why the housing market has not crashed, and he's been predicting for the past 3 years, is because there's too much demand on homes. And he says that, well, the problem is that there's not enough supply to meet the demand. Well, if that's the case, then you know what? The prices just keep going up. Because based on supply and demand, so the price will always find equilibrium between supply and demand. We currently have a shortage of homes in a lot of markets, especially the Southeast. So what does that mean? If the demand stays constant and there's a shortage, the price is going to go up to meet the demand. So what does that mean? It means that prices are not going to go down. But so many people have appointed this dude as an expert in the real estate space. They don't understand supply and demand, even though they should, because they graduated out of high school. And they don't look at any real estate data and understand it for themselves. So they've appointed this guy as the guru of all things real estate. And he's now going to explain to them why the real estate market has not collapsed, even though he said it was going to collapse over the past 3 years. But he's doing what he's doing for a specific reason that has nothing to do with educating people on how the real estate market actually functions. Because first, you got to start with basic economics, which is supply and demand. You got to start with shortages, you got to start with surplus, and you got to start with price equilibrium. Because the real estate market on the retail side is most definitely, we're talking about our retail consumer, It's a market of supply and demand. Those particular economic factors are what is going to drive a retail buyer's experience in the real estate market, right? So what we're going to continue to hammer in this particular space is, where is the education piece for all of this stuff? If we're going to point out that this person's a scammer, this person's a scammer, here's the new group of scammers. The question is, when does the person that is watching this content get educated on how to do a process to identify bad agents in the environment on their own? Or do they always got to cut on YouTube? Because, you know, we don't control YouTube. It's controlled by another group of people. So they can cut YouTube off right now if they decide to. Then the question is, where are you at? So if you got to go on YouTube to get the next scammer, and that's the only way you know what's going on in the world, right? Well, what if they decide to cut YouTube off, which they have the ability to do? Because they can cut the whole internet off whenever they decide to. Now, where are you going to be at? And so that's what I want people to really understand, is that there's a different perspective on how to really look at these situations. And we're going to kind of talk about that. And then we're going to get up on out of here, right? Because we're not going to be here that long. This particular show is going to be sponsored by www.thehighestpaid.online. That's an options training academy. And if you go through that academy, one thing I do teach people is how to look at companies, evaluate that particular company, look at balance sheets, do fundamental analysis, and understand what's going on with this particular company from an operational standpoint. Because it doesn't matter if you locate something as a scam. You're not going to be, unless your goal is to create YouTube content around scammers. Identifying somebody as a scammer may save you money, but it will never make you any money, right? And so if you can identify what companies have bad operators, and you can find that out before the rest of the market finds out, you can position yourself to make money, but you got to be willing to do the time and put the time in to get the education. And then you got to be willing to do the due diligence. You can't just expect somebody on YouTube to tell you what's going on, right? But that's the kind of things that you can learn from that particular program, because it very much is an educational based program. I just don't jump on here and talk about scammers and say, well, that's the course, right? So what we're going to go into is a really short video. And what I want you to kind of understand the difference in philosophy on how people should be empowered. And some people believe that the way you're empowered is I just give you stuff, and even information. I'm just going to give you things, information. And other people believe that you're empowered not only with giving you things that you may need, but with educating you on how to operate in your space. Because you as a group and as a person are trying to do things in this world. You're going to need the education to do those things in this world. You're not going to be able to just depend on somebody to be nice enough to give it to you all the time. It doesn't work that way. That's not how this world really works. Okay. So if we're really going to empower people, we have to educate people and train people on how to operate in their space. And so they can be successful, right? So they're not always dependent upon somebody else providing something to them, because the world doesn't work that way. And many people that find themselves in that situation, they're always longing for something, because the world is really not set up for somebody else to provide everything to your group. The world doesn't work that way. We were born into this world. It was set up a certain way, and we kind of got to deal with how it's set up until we can change it. But if you just sit back and say, well, you know what? I'm going to always be the recipient of everything, right? It's going to be very difficult for you, because what happens if those people decide that they're no longer going to provide that to you, or you no longer have access to those particular people, but you don't know how to figure these things out on your own, and nobody in your group knows how to figure these things out on their own. So let's go ahead and get into that video real quick, because I don't want this monologue to be very long-winded.
You basically knowing my ideology, and basically you knowing me knowing yours, you can support some of our programs. Is that what you're saying?
Why not?
And you believe in programs like the Breakfast with Children program and free health clinics? Right on, brothers?
We believe they're good things.
Uh-huh.
As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers.
Uh-huh.
Peace.
Mm-hmm. There's no educational program here?
That's come out of the socialization thing. You know, you set that up, brother. I mean, we can't put everything on one piece of paper.
What about this bank?
Credit union?
Mm-hmm.
Credit union. Credit union, my brother.
Is a bank.
You're hip to, are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank.
Yeah, you go and borrow money?
Yeah, it's a bank. Discipline. Owned by the people. Run for the people. And by the people.
What will money be given out to people for?
Well, the people would decide that. You want to buy, you know, whatever, you know, the people in the community decide. You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe?
See, the thing is with me, you dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more literature about the educational thing here. Because, you dig, as far as we're concerned in the struggle, the way we look at struggle is that this depends on the educational thing, you dig. Because
this depends on the education. Well, the whole thing.
No, but in the end, this does. You can form this with no education. You can form this and this.
No, not the way we're talking about forming it. You know, right. We're talking about forming it right. You know, it's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the paper.
You can form it right with no education.
No.
Let me give you an example. Jomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the end thing, Jomo told the motherfucker, said, well, you know, you can educate, hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I'll help you lead the revolution. Now I'm more pressure. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face. But he moved all the white people out and he took over and be oppressor. He did, causing no education. And the people that had been educated, they just said that we don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know the educational program to find out what is going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Jomo Kenyatta is called not a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So is Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mao's was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. But what we're saying is that it's the end. That you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people that take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's the people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism, like you got in Africa now, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be an educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we have Negro imperialists.
Okay, so what I want you to kind of understand, and I use it as an example because I really wanted to use the United States military as an example of the importance of education. But it got too complicated because when you look at how they're built out, it's so their workflow is so robust, it confused a lot of people, right? Because I think most people, all they see is the front end of the military. They don't understand it's a back end that's even bigger than the front end, right? But we're going to use education as an example, right? We're going to use the military as an example of education. I'm not somebody that was in the military, but somebody that studies the military and how they develop people, right? It's developed primarily from the ground up. That's how one of the reasons why our military is so well is because it was developed from the ground up, right? If you look at, let's say hypothetically, our United States Air Force, right? Our United States Air Force is not built to where we join the Air Force and then we pay the people that can fly to do everything, right? There's a small group of people that actually fly the airplanes, right? But everybody else in that particular military or in the Air Force has a job to support what the pilots are doing. They also have other operational specialties, but they support that, right? The United States Army isn't to where you go into the Army and then you pay the infantry, right, to do combat, and everybody else just sits back and just watches the infantry do combat. Everybody else has a job to support what those combat troops do. I think Miss Alexander said there's 7 support people for every combat soldier, right? So the way this works is that it's not to where we're just watching this person do it because they're expert. We all have some participation in what we're trying to do because we understand what our job is. We've been educated and trained around what we need to do to support the overall larger goal. These models to where you just show up and somebody tells you everything and you are not getting developed or trained or educated in that particular situation on your own. and then you show up again and they tell you everything, is a bad model, because what happens? What if that person decides not to show up next week? So we do need economic specialization in our particular economy. It is important. But many people are trying to play the game of economic specialization, and they don't even have a fundamental or baseline understanding of what's going on in this situation. So they end up in the same situation over and over and over again because no basic understanding was taking place, right? So the question we want to ask, and we're going to start and end, is that how do you learn from the situation no education is provided? Okay. Our United States Air Force is not just based on us paying the people that fly planes to fly all the missions and we just sit back and kick it. Everybody has a job in the particular Air Force to do what they do to support the overall mission of the Air Force, right? Same thing with the Army, same thing with the Navy, same thing with the Marines. It's not this particular vertical to where we got 5 people that know how to do everything and everybody else just pays them and they do everything because they're the experts, right? Everybody has a job to do to support the overall overarching mission of the military and combine it into the U.S. Armed Forces. And so that's what I want you to understand, is that these models to where you're just going to show up and somebody's going to tell you what's wrong with something and you receive no education on how to determine these things on your own, right? I think is faulty because you don't learn anything from that except how to listen to somebody else about the situation. And what happens if that person doesn't show up? What happens if that person decides not to do it? And again, now you're searching for another person to be that person in your life, right? So what we're going to go into is, if somebody pinpoints the scam, now what do you do? So if somebody says, okay, this person is scamming, right? So let's say you're looking for this particular solution and somebody says, this person is scamming, so you shouldn't deal with that person. Okay, now what do you do after that? Then they show up next week. This person is scamming. Okay, now what do you do after that? Do you show up the next week? Okay, this person is a scammer. Okay, now what do you do after that? And so the question I want to ask is that after you pinpoint the scam, now what do you do? Because you still have the same problem. Because you wouldn't be in that market looking for anything if there was not something unfulfilled in your life. Right? So the reason why you're in a market looking for something, because there's something unfulfilled in your life. So if I tell people, you know what, diets don't work, which is true. Diets don't work for most people. After I tell you that diets don't work, now what do you do? Because you're in the marketplace looking for some type of weight loss solution because there's something unfulfilled in your life. So me just telling you diets don't work doesn't help you. I can say, hey, you know what, diets don't work, but here's how I can educate you around nutrition to where you can get this particular result in your life, but it's not like a traditional diet, right? I tell people all the time, I'm not a fan of people working out like bodybuilders because most people are not bodybuilders. So what did I come with? I came with a program to where I believe it can work for you, but you don't have to work out like a bodybuilder, right? Because me just telling you, well, you don't need to work out like a bodybuilder. Once I sit there and I talk about why you shouldn't do it, now where's the education underneath that? So you now know what to do. So one thing I'm not a fan of, and we see this with the way people deal with a lot of our young folks, is we tell them what not to do, but we don't tell them what to do. And we don't empower them to allow them to do that. Right? So we tell them what not to do. We take things away from them, but then we don't tell them what to do. We don't empower them into those particular areas. So they have some. Is I'm going to box you in and not allow you to do anything, but you're going to do something, because the reason why you're looking for these solutions is because there's something unfulfilled in your life. So without the proper education, you now don't know what to do. So what do? You now keep looking for that solution and you keep running into the wrong people. So this is why these people are allowed to proliferate in the economy. It's not because we need to out them and get rid of them. It's because we failed in educating the people on how to identify them. Like with me, it's impossible to sell me a bad car because I've done the work to learn how to shop for a car. It is impossible to sell me a bad car. Now, I'm not going to be 100%. Somebody may slip something in on me because nobody's 100%. But in my opinion, my process for car buying makes it very unlikely that somebody can sell me a lemon. Because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm take the car to a mechanic. And I'm gonna let the mechanic tell me what's wrong with the car. I'm not gonna listen to the person selling me the car because I'm from the state of Florida. There's no limit law in Florida. So a person can sell you anything and you have no recourse under law. You can buy that car as is and get around the corner and the whole car can fall apart. That's it. You bought the car as is. Right? So because I live in a state with no limit law, I had to learn how to buy cars. And I got a really rigorous process to buy a car. Right? It's, you know, I can teach it to you, but I really should charge you money for it because I'm telling you, if you follow it, you don't have to worry about buying no bad cars. You got to be willing to put the time in. But there's an education behind it. So I'm just not going to point out what dealers in the area are selling bad cars, because there are going to be a lot of them, because they know most people don't know how to buy cars, especially women. And I'm not saying that to be chauvinist. I'm saying is that many car dealerships prey after women because they know they're ignorant around buying cars. So they can just hand them something and they just go for it. With me, I'm coming in with a whole different mindset, and we're going to go through a process. And if they don't want to do it, we just not going to cut a deal because I'm not pressed to buy a car from anybody. Right? So that's what I want you to understand. After you pinpoint who the scammers are, now what happens? And so what we find out is that many people are really just trying to be entertained with this stuff. And that's their real problem, is they don't feel like they got enough entertainment, and they're acting as if they're really interested in getting an improvement in these spaces. Because the real way to get the bad operators out of the space is to really educate the consumer. That's really how you do it. But because people don't see an attention incentive, well, I can't get enough attention educating people. They don't see a profit incentive to where it doesn't work for my business model to educate people, right? They don't desire, the people that claim they have the expertise, they don't desire to do the education piece because they don't get the attention that they think they should get, which means they're not going to make the money that they want to make in a particular space. But I think they value the attention more than the money. So the consumer never gets educated. So these bad operators are allowed to continue to participate in this particular environment, because it's just an issue of education. It is really not a PhD level of education. It's just basic education around these particular subjects. Next question. Do you desire to be successful in this space, or desire to find out what is wrong with an agent or agents in the space? We talked about before. If you're coming into a particular space, do you really desire to be successful in that space, or do you just looking for who's the bad operators in the space? Right? So you're driven to, like if I watch American Greed while I work out in the gym, I may be on the bike listening to American Greed. All I'm just trying to do is be entertained. I'm not trying to get American Greed to really teach me anything. It's just an entertainment piece, right? But American Greed is talking about people that have gone to trial and been convicted. They're definitely not talking about rumors and things of that nature. American Greed is really coming after the fact. People that are currently in prison, being convicted of these things, and now they're giving you the story after the fact. But I'm on the treadmill or on the spin bike, and I'm listening to an American Greed. It's just entertainment. They're not there to teach me anything. They're not there to educate me on anything. It's just purely entertainment. And I think people want to really ask themselves, stop acting as if you care about consumer rights, or you care about, consumers, in entertaining these platforms that are looking for scammers. You're just really there to be entertained, because there is no education piece, right? There's no education piece to what they're doing. American Greed is an entertainment platform. Many of these guys, I'm going to show you who the next scammer is. It's just entertainment. Because the real scam is that you're not being educated. But do you desire to get education? Because now you got to do some work. Okay. Here's the next question. What emotions are created in your life if the scammer XYZ goes to jail? So they got to do 5 years in prison, even though everybody said he was going to do 500. So he got a hell of a lawyer if he went from 500 years down to 5. Well, he got the best lawyer in the country. However, Omni goes to jail. A lot of people have painted him as a scammer. What emotions are created in your life if that guy goes to jail? Because you don't know him. Right? He don't live down the street from you. He's not from your neighborhood. So what emotions are created in your life if scammer XYZ goes to jail? So the person that you think is the biggest scammer in the world on the internet, they go to jail. Now what? Is your life different or the same? Right? It reminds me of how the Democratic Party tried to portray Trump. And I'm like, well, if you were broke before Trump ever got into office. So Trump don't have nothing to do with that. So why are you mad at Trump? Because Trump operating out of New York City. So if you're broke in California, Trump don't have anything to do with that. That's your issue. So my question is, if these people go away, what in your life changes? I'm trying to figure that out. So if Omni goes to jail, okay, cool. If this other guy goes to jail, okay, cool. If this guy gets arrested for fraud, okay, cool. The guy from Pretty Ricky got arrested for PPP fraud. Well, if you had a financial problem before the pandemic, the guy from Pretty Ricky going to jail for PPP fraud, that don't change anything, and you still got a financial problem. So that's like having a health issue. If you got a health issue and the Giants win the Super Bowl, you still got a health issue, right? If you can't afford to buy a house in this economy, and the Atlanta Falcons, right, the rookie running back for the Atlanta Falcons breaks the rookie rushing record, you still got a problem buying a house in this Atlanta market. Nothing changes in your life. So my question I want to ask you is that what emotions are created in your life if something happens to the scammer? So now, is it just about I get to celebrate that this particular bad operator is going to jail? And so this is what this is all about, is that you want to celebrate somebody's downfall? I've told y'all from the gate, I don't promote violence. But I'm going to tell you again, if you got a problem with somebody, do something about it. I don't get this era where I got a problem with somebody and I just sit back and wish they downfall. Get to it. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. So that's why I feel kind of out of place, because I don't get this era where I got a problem with all these people, but nothing ever happens. But I just want to sit back and pray on their downfall. That's weird to me, but that's me. But my question is, what emotions are created in your life if scammer XYZ goes to jail? Because in my mind, you should be so worried about production, your goals, what you're trying to do this quarter, that you shouldn't care about what that person's doing. I'm not tripping on the Garcias from Carvana go to jail. I don't think they ever go into jail. But I'm not sitting back waiting for them dudes to go to jail, because I got too much stuff going on to worry about them. They up already. They billionaires. So they're now definitely not worried about me. It's a drive time right down the street from my house. So they definitely not worried about me. So why I'm sitting all my time worrying about them? You know what I'm saying? They got theirs, right? I need to try to figure out how to get something for me and my group. I don't have time to worry about that. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is I don't understand what emotions are going to be created in your life if something happens to this person. Because when that person, let's say they do go to jail, the day they go to jail, you still going to have your same life. I remember years ago, and I'm going to get off this point after I say this, LeBron lost that championship to Dallas. Y'all remember that? He went down there, all the hype, he lost. People was talking down on LeBron, even though at that time he was the best player in basketball. And LeBron said it. And they told him not to talk like this after he said it because it was bad for his image. He said, well, you know what? I lost the championship. And everybody that's happy I lost the championship, tomorrow they got to go right back to their life. Now, they told LeBron, don't talk like that, LeBron, because, you know, we position you as a good guy in this game. But he told the truth. All the people that was happy to see me lose because I'm up and I'm doing well and yada, yada, yada. Okay, I lost the championship. I'm still me and you still you. So now you got to find something else to do because this situation is over. So now your real life got to come back. And so that's what I want people to understand. Let's go back to the next one. Last one. How do you learn from the situation no education is provided? Right? If no education is provided, how do you learn from the situation? And so that's what I want to keep asking you. If all you're doing is trying to locate who the scammer is, where is the education to where you now don't have to jump on YouTube to find out who that person is? How do you determine these things on your own? So how do you determine what's a good investment for you? How do you determine that? How do you determine what house you should be buying? How do you determine that? Where's the education piece for that? Right? How do you determine what food you should eat? There's one dude real big on YouTube. The guy has pretty much said that everything in the world is you shouldn't eat it. So I'm trying to figure out what should I eat, because he's literally created a gang of videos telling me that every food item in the world is bad for my health. So I'm like, I just drink water. Then it's water. It's not enough pH in the water. Where it need to be spring water. Like, these dudes got a million things that you can't do. Okay, so then what do I eat then? So he sells supplements, but I can't survive just off your supplements. And so with him not providing any education on how to actually pick the right food for you to have optimal health, he just brings in a bunch of people that want to hear today what's the next negative food item that you should eat. Right? And I want people to understand, how do you learn from the situations no educators are provided? And I don't mean formal education. Right? I don't mean formal education, because many of you have formal educations, but you have not been able to solve the problems in your family, which means that your education is deficient. I'm not against formal education, but we've had Negroes with formal education for over 100 years. And a problem's still not getting solved. So it can't just be formal education. You can't. We've been producing PhDs. I think, was it Carter G. Woodson was a PhD from Harvard, I believe, early 1900s. He said that most Negroes with formal educations ain't no good to their own folks. So I'm not against formal education. I want people to take that the wrong way. But what I'm asking that is, when I'm talking about education, I'm not just talking about formalized education, because most of our education is designed to solve somebody else's problem. So that's why we have the education and we still have the exact same problems, because it's not designed to solve our problems. It's designed to solve somebody else's problem so you can work in their system. Right? What education do you need to solve the problem of your group? And how do you go get that education? Right? Or are you so cool with, these are the problems in my family, but I don't care if they get passed on to the next generation, so I'm never going to do anything to solve them, because I just want to be entertained during my life on the planet. Right? So I'm fine with my children and my grandchildren having the exact same problem I got. I'm cool with that. Right? So that's where you at, then that's where you at. But I'm going to keep asking you, how do you learn from the situations no education is provided? Right? One of the biggest things that I realized, because I was a business consultant working with BOBs, is many of them had no idea what they was doing. They don't even understand the fundamentals of marketing. I tell you again and again, the most important thing of your marketing is your offer. It's not any of this extra stuff. I learned from people that was marketing when you had to write letters and send them off in the mail, and they made millions of dollars. So if they make millions of dollars without any of this stuff, you don't need it. You can use it, but you don't need it. Why? Because they made millions with none of this stuff. No internet, no television, and no radio. Writing letters and sending them off in the mail. Right? That's who taught me how to market. I learned from that particular school. So I teach anybody that learns marketing from me, your offer is the most important thing in your marketing piece. Not the internet strategy, not the Instagram strategy, not even the email strategy. I'm a big emailer. The most important thing is your offer, right? And so I keep getting people to understand that's the education piece, but most people don't understand that. So you can jump on YouTube and watch, well, how this person scaled to 1 million and how this person did that. And if you don't go work on your offer, none of that is going to be important. You just being entertained by their stuff, right? How this person did 1 million in 6 months. Don't matter if you don't go work on your offer, because that's the most important part of your marketing piece, is what you're offering to people. And so that's all we're going to be. We're not going to be here long. There's not a lot to talk about, but I just want people to really understand. Remember, I told you that if you continue to let people just entertain you with who the bad operators are in the marketplace, and they don't provide you with any education, what you're signaling to those people is, I don't care if the same thing that's happening to me happens to my descendants, because that's who they're looking for. That's their ideal customer. Their ideal customer is not somebody that actually wants to be educated. So as long as you keep showing up to not be educated, what you are voting for is lack of education in that particular space. Right? That's really what you're showing up for. So you're telling that person, this is really what I want. You don't want anything else, right? Because the way to stop those people from showing up and continue doing what they do, and I'm talking about these bad operators, is to get an education to where they don't have any room to operate. Because you can't sell me a bad car. It's impossible, right? I'm not saying I'm 100%, but I give you about a 90% chance that you can't sell me a bad car. Because why? I know what to look for. I know exactly what to go in there and look for. I know how to talk to you. I know what to pay for. I know what not to pay for. I know all the add-ons y'all going to try to put on the back end, because I know that's really how y'all really make y'all money. That's where your biggest margins are, is on those add-ins. It's not on actually selling me the car. I know the whole game, because I come from the old school. We used to look up. We used to go and ask the manufacturer how much they sold the car to the dealer for. Before the internet, we was doing this stuff. So when I showed up at the dealer, I knew exactly what he paid for the car. So I knew what his margin was at. See what I'm saying? So that's the car game I come out of. So it's hard to sell me a bad car, because I know what to look for. I know how to test drive it. I know to send it to a mechanic. And I know if you objecting to that, then it's no deal. But I was educated by older dudes when I was a youngster on how to actually go buy cars. They gave me the whole game because they was doing private car sales with no internet through magazines and stuff. So they gave me the game. And then I took the game they gave me and I just ran with it. And I've been doing that ever since I was a youngster. You feel me? So that's all we're going to talk about. But I want people to really understand. I would encourage you to not pass on your family's problems to your descendants. You ain't got to solve it 100%. You can solve 20% and give it to your children or your grandchildren and tell them that they're responsible for the next 20%. People that come after us when we all gone, they solve the next 20%. But if we continue to let every situation that we're dealing with get pushed onto the next generation because we don't want to do nothing about it, then what we're telling those people that's coming after us is we didn't really care about them. And I don't think a lot of people realize that's what they're communicating to their descendants. Is I don't really care what happened to you. Why? Because I'm not going to try to do nothing about the situation going on right now. I'm not going to try to improve myself or improve you so you ain't got to go through what I went through. I'm cool with you going through what I went through. Right? So that's going to be it. We're going to read the comments. And if you have any disagreements, you can come on live. Let me see if anybody got the heart. I'll put that up. I'll pin this in the chat and we'll keep pushing to read these comments. We're going to get up on out of here. Uh-oh. Okay. That's pinned. If you disagree, you can come through and tell me why you disagree. And let's get up on out of here. Let me read these comments so we're going to get up on out of here, man. So Yogi X, I appreciate the $5 super chat. Miss Katrina Alexander, appreciate the $19.99. She says, Diamond Dave will pull up documents and educate you so you can learn for yourself. Most definitely. Right? I show people how to go to the SEC, how to pull these forms out because they're sitting right there in front of your face. How to read these forms, understand what you need to look for. How to read balance sheets. Reading a balance sheet is very easy. Anything you don't understand, Google it. Accounting's not anything new. There was accounting, 1,000 years ago. So accounting documents are not anything new. And the more you look at it, the better you understand. Anything you don't understand, take that particular line item and go Google it and see what it means. Right? Because a lot of these people is on YouTube. I watched a guy on YouTube tell me that this guy was doing something bad because he was taking money out of his business. You can't be if it's your business. I run my own business. If I choose to go into my business account and pull X amount of dollars out of my business account, there's nothing wrong with that. Why? It's my business. It's not anybody else's money. It's my money. It's the money driven in through revenue. See, so when you don't know how to read that stuff, you think he's telling you some high level information. He's just making this stuff as it goes along because there's nothing wrong with you doing that. It's your business. It's not like a CEO of a publicly owned company doing that. If you're running a private business, you go in your business and take out how much money as you want to go out. You may have to deal with it later during tax time, but that's your business because why? It's your money. You made it. There's nothing nefarious about that. There's nothing suspicious about that. Right? So this is what I'm saying is that when you haven't been educated in these spaces, you let people just throw anything. And one of the things about us as a people, we always pay the most penalty for not understanding certain financial situations. We don't even understand the situation. And everybody preys on that. Even some of these same people that's claiming they're trying to help you or they trying to expose the scammers. They playing on that stuff too. Right? That's why they only let certain people on their shows. Ray Gun, man, appreciate the $2 super chat, man. Big up to East Atlanta. I was out in Conyers earlier today, man. Not a bad area. It's crowded, though. Journey to Jasmine, appreciate the $4.99 super chat. Mr. Terrence S, man, appreciate the $4.99 super chat, man. I really appreciate it.